Welcome, everyone. It is Wednesday, October the 18th, and I am Joel here, joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Tim Thompson. I'm going to just look at my speaker view so I can just see our faces. Greetings from Los Angeles. Tim, you're where?
I am in Toronto. Beautiful Toronto.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, for anyone that doesn't know the weekly briefing, this is a 30-minute pause that refreshes. I got to find a better phrase
Yeah,
for
we
that.
really
That's just
do need that.
a little too corny because it doesn't quite deliver. No, I mean, this 30-minute break is really an opportunity we take each week to give owners of studios, production companies, an update on what's going on in our world. What are we hearing? What are other owners talking about? Or something maybe that's a trend or an item in the news that we think is something that owners need to know about. And Tim, this week's topic is interesting because you're out there in the world and you had something happened. But I'm gonna let you tell us
Yeah,
why is this our topic today?
it's a it's such a well, one is why isn't this the topic we have all the time? Or we're talking about becoming great and the work it takes to become great. Isn't that why we get into this industry to begin with, or the real challenge? We can dumb down our problems to sales and finance and whatever, but we're actually trying to achieve greatness. So let's just all recognize that. But these cohort dinners that we have are fun events because we sit down with studio owners all at a table having one conversation, which is awesome. The sharing, the revelations that take place, the honest rapport between people, and a lot of admiration, especially in a small community like Toronto. They've known each other for years and can respect each other. Um, but what's great is as we went around the table last night, I started realizing people are doing more than just the usual things. For example, Jeremy Polyester, he just launched a storefront. He's making product and he has a cash register, I think, and kind of like moving stuff across the table. And then
Yep.
there's Jenny Davis and Casey Smith, who have recently launched Mothers of MoGraph. And it's not their day job. They just have an initiative they're putting out there, having conversations. And Jenny was at the table too, talking that through, meeting Emily Sorley, having a conversation, and knowing that there's more to contribute than just your day job. So I thought, what is this that happens to us? And something that's really interesting, Jenny brought it up, is Casey was originally inspired by a talk that Amanda gave at I think it was Camp MoGraph. But from that, Casey and Jenny hooked up and they started talking about it, and they thought, somebody has to do it. And just by taking that initiative of the work first, good things and great things are happening to them. It's actually a voice that needs to be heard. The conversations that need to take place. And I thought, isn't that exactly how it really happens? We're trying to achieve greatness, but it often is thrust upon us. It's based off of following our heart, a desire, a true, transparent need. And then we're given the benefit and the respect of the initiative after we did all the work from it. And I thought, I think
Yeah,
we
of
need to
course.
talk about this in the creative field because so many of us have this desire.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm reminded specifically of something that Jeremy said. This was, I think, the end of last year. And I've said it many times, so if you've heard me say this before, forgive me. But it's so poignant because we were doing this whole exercise inside of Confab of how do we get better at marketing? Because most studios suck at marketing. It's just the reality. It's okay. I sucked as well when it was back in my day. But as we were building this system and this method for how do we do marketing as studios, Jeremy made this great statement when he said, can we, instead of calling it marketing, can we just call it making cool shit? And I thought there
Yeah.
was something, I mean, of course it's striking and controversial, right? To be worded that way. But it made me realize there's something really important inside the creative person and especially the creative entrepreneur that needs to get out. And I think sometimes we get so entrenched in this, we have this job to do, and if I'm not doing more of the job and making more of the money and growing the company and all this stuff, then I'm somehow missing out on my full potential. And I think as people get older in their careers, they sense more and more, no, there's actually something bigger or deeper within me that needs to come out.
Yeah.
I might say that, sure, express it because it's great marketing. But don't do it because it's great marketing,
Yeah,
right?
but to be honest, if that doesn't come out, what's going to come out is regret, and that's going to hurt even worse. By the way, Ryan Summers just couldn't jump out of his seat as soon as you said "make great shit." I swear he like grabbed his microphone and his headphone. He's so ready to jump into this conversation.
I came running from Starbucks. I don't know if you guys knew. It took me 3 seconds to get here.
I'm flat out. He's all like,
I'm living this right now. I am living this right now.
Well, trust me. Okay, so just for the little bit of anecdote, because it's well worth mentioning. So my partner and I, when I was showing her the polyester store, and I can't remember why I was, but I just said, "Oh, check this out. My client Jeremy is doing this thing." She just kind of lost her mind. She was like, "What? What is this? Oh my gosh, my daughters would love this. Can I actually, I can order this stuff? I can actually buy this stuff? Wait, can I get that as a sticker? That little GIF is so adorable." And I'm thinking, this is not polyester marketing, right? It's something else. It's also, it reminds me of Dallas Taylor, who runs De Facto Sound. When you and I first met Dallas, do you remember? He said,
Yeah.
"Hey, I did this podcast and it's starting to blow up and I'm trying to figure out how I can use it as marketing to drive business to my studio." And we said, the podcast is a business.
Yes.
Right? Like, don't worry about it being great marketing to do that thing over there. Like it can just be its own thing and let it be an expression and something amazing that people love. And that that I think inspired him further down that journey that he's been on, which has been incredible for anyone that doesn't know that story, right? Millions of followers and all that.
Ryan, what inspires you about this? Why does this speak to the heart of the creative person so much?
This is the one thing every other creative industry knows and does intrinsically, and we don't for some reason. Like we are always in service of someone else, which is great, but that's not the definition of motion design, right? Like everybody wants to define motion design as animation for advertising, and it's not. Like we are a unique group of people that are willing to try to learn everything in order to express what's inside us, and we happen to sell that. But at
Isn't
the
it
convex
some
of that
of
is
what
like
our
this stuff.
Isn't some of what our desire is to become inspiration? I mean, but some of it I think is to become known, but I think known is a byproduct of actually some work that you did, and it's so much more rewarding when that work came from your heart out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll think of like Jenny, of just how she knew from her heart that the motherhood is difficult in MoGraph.
Mm-hmm.
And when she heard Casey's story, she thought, I can't stop. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't even know if it's worth my time and effort, but I'm going to go do something, and it contributes to a greater good. I think that's just a wonderful, as you say, superpower,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's sorry, Ryan, you were about to say.
I truly feel motion design at its core is selfless. And I feel like because we have to be able to react to every trend, we're constantly looking for inspiration. And I think that's key to what you're saying, Tim, is that we'd like to be the inspiration for all the other people that inspire us. Right. But like we never find the time, or we can't find the value, or we can't justify it. But like seeing this is like, man, all I want Jeremy to do is weekend characters. Like that's like, what do we have to do to pay him enough money to just do that and not another commercial for someone else?
By the way, our social media team has to capture that clip that Ryan just said. That's going to be a great 40-second clip on Instagram. It's very well said that motion design is selfless. There's something, well, it's why we work so hard. It's why we're willing to put in extra effort. It's why we think about it all the time. There's something intrinsic about the nature that we have in connecting with others that we want that greatness to come out. Thanks, Ryan. You're awesome, as always.
So, Tim, I have a list that I've been working on since you and I did some research for this, because I thought it would be interesting for you and I to ask, what are some examples? And I can drop them here in the chat. It's just sort of like a working list that came kind of off the top of my head.
We should ask others let people throw some items out there once we give examples.
So here I'm going to drop one. Let's see, I don't have first and last names here for everyone, but if you look at this list, I'll just kind of read them off, and then, Tim, you can tell me which of these we might want to pull up. So I'm thinking of Matt Guastafaro at Hugo in the last, I think, year and a half. He launched a video podcast, Positive Mischief. Jeremy at Polyester launched the store that we've all been talking about. Jeff Christian at Side Road Media, documentary film launched on Kickstarter. Same with Kelly Miller at Andor, launched the film on Kickstarter. Okay, Jared at Deep Sky, he and his team I think they're co-sponsors or co-runners of the Portland After Effects user group, which they've been pushing and bringing back to life, which is amazing. We have Lady Bosses, which how would you describe Lady Bosses?
Yeah, I mean, that's a user group inside of RevCommunity. So RevCommunity in and of itself has inspired people to gather together, talk about it, specifically women business owners. And I love onboarding new business owners and finding that those that are women owned and say, by the way, you get a special place inside of our community where the others don't get to be part of it. And Shauna Schultz runs that group. Ladies are inspired from it. Open dialogue, again, changing the world.
And it's worth mentioning Shauna Schultz, who is partner at Mass Effects in Denver. I mean, super busy person running, with a lot going on, right? So the fact that she curates, or what's the word, moderates that breakout group is really cool. I'll mention, I'm going to skip ahead because I want you to talk about Mothers of MoGraph.
Oh, yeah,
Dominic Maria I had dinner with him last night. Crazy artist. A lot of you know him as my sort of positioning co-conspirator. We love to shred people's websites and positioning. He's doing art on this, not on the side. It's more like, no, it's his thing, and it's his. Anyways, there's something coming out soon that when you see it, everyone's going to be like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then, of course, I mentioned Taylor, 20,000 Hertz. What about Mothers of MoGraph? What is that?
Well, just, I just did a podcast with Jenny and Casey on Friday too, just to get in deeper. So that will come out in the next few weeks and you can learn more about it. But specifically, just again, Amanda basically spoke from a stage and said, hey, I'm a mother and I run a motion design company. And Casey, I guess, was absolutely inspired. And she thought, I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about motherhood in motion design. It has been seen as a weakness, and for someone to step up and do it. So they basically started a Slack channel, Instagram group, and so on. And that's just here in the Lady Bosses in the breakout group. But we also have a space called Show Your Stuff. And in this space, there are people out there inspiring each other all the time. I think, Ryan, you're talking about what's the group that does Some Things Awry? They do those shorts. They're posting that information here, and they got, what was it, Joel? Millions of views. I don't remember how many views. I was going to kind of see if I can figure it out.
Yeah, if you really want to know, I'm having Amy and her team come into Confab tomorrow just to talk about that whole hey, you made something just for fun and it totally went viral, and now they're getting tons of requests and projects and all this other crazy stuff. But again, they didn't create it as, oh, this is going to be a really cool ad or this is really cool marketing. They just made something awesome.
38 million views that they have on on the spot, and it's a perfect short. It's a great expression of that. It's great. It's very clever little thing. And to be honest, what's fun about it is anybody can do it, but they did it, and they do multiple shorts. It's really fun. Their Instagram channel is really fun to kind of follow and see the work they're doing. But just that, making something to inspire, making something because you are inspired, making something to explore. I know PJ Richardson, he does a post a day or 3 posts a day of something that he's experimenting with. There's just so much more happening. And go back to our initial thought is getting started is the key. What we want people to do is get beyond the moment where you feel like you need to have permission to go do it, but put yourself out there and do it. I know I'm going to put my Tim Consulting hat here too. What I don't want to hear people to hear me say is go do a whole bunch of stuff and spend a bunch of stupid money making something, hoping it gets success someday. Please don't do that. The if you build it, they will come mentality is the absolute wrong mentality of doing it. But if there's something in pursuing your heart that you just can't stop, and you know that there's a moment, I'd say this, also make a commitment to get that done. Find that work hours to do it. Don't do it on your extra time. Invest your company into that process. And that's the growth part of it. I think the greats that we know of are the ones that are always out there inspiring. And once in a while, they're recognized. Once in a career, they're recognized. But they often produce a lot more than they're recognized for. And that's a project, that's a method, and that's a get starting mentality. So I just love that we have to remind ourselves that that's an important aspect of this.
You know what? I have something cool I can share here, Tim. There's a module that I teach inside Jumpstart, and I have this concept called attracting better clients. Now, that sounds very businessy, marketing,
self-serving.
Right. So let's rename it, okay? And instead call it, if clients did not exist, that's the name of the worksheet. Okay, so let me show you though the method behind this, because I think this is kind of cool. If I share my screen, here it is. Okay, this worksheet, I know it's a little bit of like, oh my God, what am I looking at? Just notice the method though, because if a lot of people get stuck with, oh, I'd love to make something, but I don't know what, and they kind of get stuck. And what I did was I said, hey, look at these attributes. Like if you were going to make something, is it something that is existing that you can leverage, right? That it's already working? Is it your strength? Is it your passion? Is it scalable? Is it live? Meaning, can it be done in real life, real time, et cetera? Does it come or generate referrals? Does it have a capacity to create a list, like a following or that sort of a thing? And it's funny because when people go through this, they're like, yeah, we do paid projects, and they have some of these characteristics, but they don't have all of them because it's not live, and maybe it's, not my passion or something. But as you go down and you start looking at these things like, oh, what about doing passion projects or doing articles? Maybe I should go and be a judge. Maybe I should create cool swag, right? You keep going and it's like, well, what if I decided to start a podcast, right? Ask Ryan Summers about that. What if I decided to do some sort of a live show, a conference? I'm going to start a new awards show. I'm going to launch a festival. Here's Jared and the Deep Sky people, right? They're running a user group. And then you come down here and you say, well, gosh, maybe I'm going to be like, if I was Tim and Joel, I would be like, I'm going to start something here called Weekly Briefing, right? Because you and I didn't start the Weekly Briefing as marketing, not at all. COVID hit and we were all in freak out. And I remember you calling me that one day and you were like, Joel, we just have to start. And I was the one that was sort of like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And you were like, let's just get on Zoom every day.
Yeah,
and we'll
let's just turn on our cameras.
Just turn on our cameras and we'll just talk. And I was like, I can do that. And we did it for 100 days straight because everyone kept showing up. And there was something really beautiful about that. Just start. It's okay to suck at the start. We all know this principle. You're going to suck when you start, and it's going to get better and better and better. And then magic starts to happen.
Well, what I love about the decision matrix you put out there is that, again, we're trying to recognize maybe a potential benefit for ourselves and our group. But when we're honest about what's really going to inspire us, we're not going to, that's not always going to be clear. And to some cases, for example, we know Dallas's story. He didn't start the podcast to have, 1 million listeners every month. He didn't start it that way. He started because he had a curiosity and he knew if he invited others onto the podcast, he can learn from them. So he used it as a learning platform for himself and then shared that with others. And it obviously benefited others and became a platform unto itself. I think something like user groups, community-driven items, even just like forget trying to do something you have to maintain. Like we're doing something on the Weekly Briefing that has become routine for us. It's easy for us now. It wasn't very easy at the beginning, but we don't have to necessarily say, hey, do something on our regular weekly routine or monthly routine. We just say like every once in a while, invite someone out to coffee, be a mentor, let others learn from you. I used to do this thing called my poor friends lunch. And, Ben Apley's here. I'm not going to say Ben was poor, but Ben was a younger kid that wanted to get in industry. And I thought to myself, this is how people are drawn into industry, and given a chance to hire people, I would be open to whoever came my way and get a chance to join the group and see who can survive in it. So just being open to what's coming your way and the gifts you've been given is really awesome.
I'm sitting here in Jordan Brady's studio here in Santa Monica. A lot of you know him. He hosts the Respect the Process podcast. I wish he was here. We're going to come back in 30 minutes and do an episode. What's interesting is thinking about, he's probably got several hundred episodes now. And he's actually the reason I started the RevThinking podcast. Because when I talked to him, I said, why do you do it? Right? Does it generate all this business and all these leads and all this, that, and the other? And he was like, no, I might get a couple people who come my way each year as a result of the podcast. I do it because I love it. And it comes back to me in these unexpected ways. And he's just still doing it. Here I am going to be on his podcast, I think the third time. And I credit him for just encouraging me, just start.
Yeah. And I'll give you one more example, but this is probably where the rubber hits the road for a lot of people. Carson Hood at Big Star had an idea of, and it was a big challenge because we live, let's say, like when we started industry, it was very competitive. And the idea of talking to a competitor and even find out information competitor almost seems foreign, especially with nearly 700 people on RevCommunity now. Like it seems weird that people didn't share their secrets. But I can tell you war story after war story of how I had to keep myself hidden and not be able to tell people who I was working with because it was so competitive and so almost viscerally angry. And to a point now where Carson is calling his competitors, working down a system, and people have an event together called Assembly. And the Assembly group are basically a contractual group or a loose contractual group, I think, where they take their clients. You have to bring your clients with you into a group with your competitors and share your clients with competitors. And what they believe is one, it makes us stronger, right? They have an abundance mentality. It's not scarcity. I'm not losing anything in this process. If my clients can benefit from someone else's benefit, who am I to stop them from that process? But also like the growth and opportunity of being the people that are bringing people together. Because a lot of events just aren't happening anymore. The lobby at Promax isn't happening anymore. And it was such a dynamic, important scene, almost like a high school reunion meets a meat market for business. And we have to have community building up together. And the momentum Assembly is getting is really great. That's a complex process. Bringing on people, having them have the trust and ability to do it, trusting one another and not being so afraid of it, everyone having a shared mentality in the process, and then freaking launching an event, which is hard enough, that whole process as well. But the desire and the output and the growth and the potential benefits and potential failures along the way are all things that we deal with. I just love the fact that community is growing in such a way that these are becoming more and more available to us. We're not holding back and stealing from one another when we open our mind and our hearts to these ideas.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to a moment about 12 years ago when my business partner almost got into a full-blown rumble, like fist fight with a competitor across town because they were accusing him of something. And I'm like, what is this strange world? But now I fast forward to today and I feel like, hopefully we're helping build this movement called, hey, it's way more like actually productive, helpful for us to be generous, right? And I'm looking at Ed here in my Zoom view, who was from Spilt. We did an episode with Matt Schmonson talking about this idea called the generosity paradox. And if you haven't heard that, I highly recommend it. It's a really popular episode talking about that concept. And think about this, Tim. Wouldn't it be fun to challenge somebody here today? Think of your biggest rivals in your local market. Reach out to them and say, hey, let's host an event. I'm going to bring all my best clients. You bring all your best clients.
Yeah,
that's what Assembly is. It's,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding. It's the real deal. I'm very amazed and impressed.
Yeah, the iron is sharpening iron in that process.
And
so let's talk about what it takes. Okay.
I'm going to make one more little point. Yeah. What do your clients, what do they see and hear and feel in that type of an environment? Right? That's what's really powerful. They show up into a setting where they're like, wow, these people are all about, let's all help each other in the most awesome way possible. So sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, what you can't hear when you propose this thing, but really is the reality is if you're bringing your best clients, those people you're inviting, the 3 people you're inviting, become your best salespeople because they're talking to your future clients and saying, the best people I work with are, and that's part of the process. You're not losing something, you're gaining something, and that's like a growth factor, an abundance factor. What I was going to say is like let's inspire somebody today. Let's understand where and how to get started here. Because there's probably some steps that when we sit here right now, we're going like, oh, I've always dreamed of something. I love the opportunity matrix that you showed there. I can't remember what it's called in Jumpstart, but this thought process of meditating on benefits, understanding and filtering it is one way.
Yep.
I personally, Joel, when I think of ideas, this because I walk around and I scribble things on these notebooks all the time. I have this thought process of like, if I have one of those moments, we know those moments, it feels to me like the voice of God. And I think like, if that's the voice of God, I better write this down. So I that's one of the first things I do when I'm thinking about the next thing that I would put together is I don't even care what form it is, what pen I have to use, but I have to get it out of my head. And that to me always feels like the first step. Because when I go through the entire thought process, it almost feels like it's more real than if I just keep it stuck up there. I almost regret all those thoughts process I have I didn't get out of my head because I don't know where they went anymore after that moment. But that's the trick I have. What's your trick if you're thinking about, the aha moment?
I mean, I think of it, it's when my imagination is wandering, it's when I'm reflecting, it's when I'm driving down the road or something, and I'm reflecting or thinking about what is this thing inside of me that's like this untapped potential. What is this weird, crazy desire that I have that I'm just not expressing yet? And just let it bother you. Like, let it bother you, because when it comes back up and it comes back up, it's like, I think maybe your brain or your soul starts to search for the patterns out there in the universe. And then you're going to bump into that person. You're going to see that thing online. You're going to, whatever, get that long lost connection reestablished. And suddenly your mind is going to say, you see that? We should do this thing called, Camp MoGraph because, right? So it's just getting in touch with those deeper desires so that your brain can start doing the pattern recognition that it does so well.
Well, I'll say this, Joel. When you have those thoughts, they do bother me because you literally are bothering me with those thoughts, wondering if we can get them done. It feels like every Monday's meeting and we hog it thinking of the next dream we're going to put together.
That's right.
But I honestly thought you were going to say, because this is the other reality check in being long-term partner with you now, is I think the first thing you do is build a web page. Before we even know what you're building a web page for, you are posted. You either have a keynote or a web page started, and then we're filling in the blanks. I don't know what that is for you, but just something that goes, I'm going to create a form first and fill in the details later.
You know what it is? And everyone here is probably excellent at this, probably far better than me, is when you mock something up, it gives you and your people, your tribe, something to react and respond to. So a mock-up can be really powerful, because if I said, I got this idea for a drink and it's going to this, it's going to that, and you're like, I don't know, I kind of get it. But then if I said, check this out, wouldn't that be cool? Now you're like, oh, I can react to it. I can almost touch it, feel it, smell it. So yeah, what does it look like for, I mean, I do this in Jumpstart a lot. When I start talking about positioning, I say, I want you to take that phrase and put it on your website in all caps, as big as the screen. Like, mock it up. Let's actually look at it and say, wow, that's kind of cool. So there's a certain magic in just creating the manifestation of that desire.
Because the conversion from that to the next thing is so easy. You can already see it. So you're like, should I just post it and see what happens next? And then the obvious starts coming.
You share it with your community, right? Your clients, your friends, whatever, and people start going, oh my God, if that thing existed, right? If that thing existed, I would get behind it. And you're like, yep, that was well worth creating that little mock-up.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I went to that meeting where you and PJ started talking about marketing. It became, I think, derailed the pitch is what came out of that. But I just remember you had like a random screenshot of something. It wasn't even an idea, but you were kind of just getting there, and PJ was throwing ideas, and you started capturing it before we knew we had derailed the pitch getting started. So I think there's so many like that.
I like Ryan's comment here. That's me buying URLs for projects before I ever figure them out. Yeah, it's exactly. It's like, well, I'm going to at least create space for this thing that I sense is possible. And then my mind's going to start working it out, and I'll create the mock-up. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. It's funny, David said, I'm a URL buyer too. I have way too many. My wife has no idea what the credit card transactions for. I'm like, it's just a URL I might need someday.
That's fantastic. Well, we're about out of time, so I guess we should wrap it up with like a final word. For those of you that are not a member of our community, if you're a studio or production company owner or leader, we certainly invite you to go to revthink.com/community and join us there, and all the folks that we've been talking about. Most of them are inside that community. What else, Tim?
I'll just do our sign off because it's so real, especially in a moment like this, that RevThink exists so that you can thrive in your business and life and career. And what you can hear from us, we're thinking about it, we're processing that. We want to come alongside you. So yeah, use community. Reach out to us, let us know what's going on. If you're in Toronto, Ron, show up next time to the dinner. Just kidding. But let's go. Yeah, there he is.
He's like, what? You're giving me a hard time about this still? All right. Well, hey, Tim, say hi to everybody in Toronto for me. I'll do the same here tonight at Assembly in LA. And great to be with all of you this week. We'll see you next week for another weekly briefing.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.